Then, once again, hello and welcome everybody to the third edition of the SAP Platform Automation Customer and Partner Roundtable. We are in the month of May, but we will look back into April, what happened and what we could present to you. You should see my presentation on the other screen. If not, let me please know. And with that, let's start with what we have to show today. So first of all, as usual, the SAP disclaimer, because we will show and present some stuff that is more forward-looking. So take that with a grain of salt, because we cannot say when this might come finally, but I think we have some interesting stuff there. Then again, also as usual, if you have been attending the prior sessions, we have some housekeeping rules. So we are using Teams webinar, as you have seen, with a mandatory registration. That's how we have to set up things. So you have to sign up for each and every Teams webinar again, unfortunately, but that's how we are forced to do it. If you have questions throughout the session, please enter them in the Q&A tool. We will then release it and answer it at the end of this session. The entire session is being recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded, this is the point in time where you should then leave the session. After the recording, all slides that you see will be made available on GitHub on the landing page for the roundtable, and the recording will also be referenced there and will be made available on YouTube so that everybody can access it, although they might not have joined the session via Teams. The frequency of the roundtable is monthly, give or take 1 or 2 weeks. And we will only have one session for all time zones. That's why we record it, so everybody can watch the recording at the end of the day. With that usual stuff that we talked about before, let's hit to the agenda. First of all, I would like to start with what's new, what has happened over the course of the last 4 to 5 weeks. And then we will have 3 demos. One is about the provider authentication via BTP CLI. That was something that was mentioned last time in the roundtable, and finally we made it happen. Then some update for those of you who are using Terraform for service instance creation. We have a new option for you that I think is something that you will like. And then we have a more extensive demo on the Terraform provider for the cloud connector that was requested last time. And that's why my colleague Sartak is also in the call, who is the main contributor for the Terraform provider for cloud connector and will guide you through the demo. At the end, as I mentioned before, we have a Q&A. With that, as usual, here we go with the team. So those are the folks who are the heads behind the BTP CLI, as well as Terraform. So those are the folks who make the magic happen that you see. Now, what's new in April? For BTP CLI, not too much. So some things are in the making. We have not finished them yet, and they are in the pipeline. So hopefully more updates in the next edition. Having said that, there is one thing that I would like to show you. And if you have been in the custom engagement initiative that happened at the beginning of this year, we presented there something that was an integration of code snippets from the BTP CLI and Terraform into the cockpit that should make your life easier when you move from the cockpit, from ClickOps to a more DevOps, a more automation approach, because this gives you the context, where are you in the cockpit and how would that feel and look like when it comes to BTP CLI or Terraform. And here is a little sneak peek. So the development has started and is ongoing. We have now this new feature, at least on our internal systems, with respect to getting you a code overview being subject or being context aware. So what you will see in the lower code preview part is kind of connected to what you see on the upper part in the cockpit. And this should make your life really easy to kind of get an idea how things would look and feel like on the automation side of the house. That's kind of the stuff that you can be looking forward to. Let's move to Terraform. What's new in April? So in the last session, we discussed a lot about the list feature that came with Terraform at the end of last year, and we started to implement that for each and every provider. And now we also caught up with implementing lists in the Cloud Foundry provider, which is under the Cloud Foundry organization, but maintained by us. So there you also have now the list features for all the different resources. Second thing, which will also be part of the demo, is we have enhanced the service instance creation to not only accept the plan ID, the technical plan ID of the service, but also the offering and plan name. We will see that in a second. Then there is one new feature in the cockpit that you might have stumbled across that came out, I think, last week, yes, which is a pending deletion of sub-accounts. So if you have a sub-account and you have configured to be able to force delete it, even if you have that, the sub-account will not be deleted immediately, but there is some kind of a grace period of, I think, 7 days where the deletion is pending. Now we have enhanced the Terraform provider to consider that. So if you trigger a deletion via Terraform, we will, even in this grace period, handle the sub-account as if it was deleted. So we will remove it from the state. Now, if you would like to restore it via Terraform, you can also do that. We have implemented a Terraform action for that. Restoring, of course, is only possible during the grace period. With that, there is also one more feature that we will demo, and that's the authentication via BTP CLI, which is currently experimental. I would say a few words about that. So you don't need, if you are using Terraform locally, you don't need to have some environment variables, inject them to authenticate, but you can authenticate via BTP CLI, via SSO, all the two-factor dance, you can do that, and then we will reuse this authentication flow in our Terraform provider. With that, we are already at the demos. So let's start with the authentication via the BTP CLI. Let's first check the documentation. So what we have added in the last release is this sign on via BTP CLI session, where you can set one environment variable, which tells the provider, hey, please use the BTP CLI session for any type of authentication. Then do a login via BTP CLI. If you have some special configurations of your BTP CLI, then please also specify the config path. This might be the case in your scenarios, depending on how your organization set things up. And then you can do the Terraform commands as you want. You don't need to export your username. You don't need to export your password or some X509 certificates for local execution. That's all doable. Of course, you have to have the BTP CLI installed. Now, we have marked this as experimental. Why? So we tested it. We tested it also for different operating systems, Windows, Mac, Linux. Nevertheless, we are not yet sure if we have considered really everything that an organization might do when it comes to configuring stuff. So we want to hear your feedback if there are some rough edges still in there that we might have to consider. Nevertheless, let's take a look at how this feels like. So what I have here is a setup with a global account. I have the Terraform provider, and I just want to set up a simple sub account, so nothing fancy here. That's not the main part of the demo. Now what I do is I export this parameter. So when I do a echo, use BTP CLI session. You should see that that is true. And then I do a BTP login via SSO, or please. I want to go to the main part. Now I can log in. I'm logged in, and this is also reflected here in the console. So you see that I'm logged in via the BTP CLI, and now I can do a Terraform. And as you can see, there is no error concerning authentication, so it seems like I'm authenticated. So let's do a Terraform apply. Let's make it clear. Let's do a Terraform apply. Yes, I want to create this sub account, and it seems like things are working. So let's check it here. Of course, timeout hits again, and what you see is the sub account with the BTP CLI authentication is getting created. No more fuss around, hey, I have to export my env variables. I might have to have them store them locally and inject them into my session and whatnot. So you can now really use this BTP CLI flow and use that for your authentication. I think that's something that quite some of you have been waiting for. And yeah, here we go. And here we have it. And as you can see, we have it now also in our state, of course, and I can do a Terraform destroy without any further login or whatsoever, because everything is stored in the session, and destruction can happen again. So I hope you like that feature. I hope you give it a try and let us know if we might have missed something with regards to your organization-specific setup of BTP CLI. That's the first part of the demo part. So with that, some other stuff. Some would call it convenience feature. I would call it, well, something that we could improve in the flow of Terraform, and that's the service instance creation. Now, for those of you who have been handling Terraform for a while now, they are quite aware that the service instance creation requires an extra hop. So up to now, what you had to do was you had to specify the resource, and then you had to hand over the service plan ID. And the plan ID is nothing that you get back from doing the entitlement or something like that. You have to call a data source to fetch that. Now, that doesn't sound like something super complicated. Having said that, from the Terraform lifecycle, a data source is always executed at the beginning of your Terraform flow. And you cannot really influence that. And this might lead, depending on your setup, to some weird planning output that confuses you. So you have to know a lot how Terraform works internally to interpret that. And that's just because we have this data source in there. Now, what we did is we have now added two more parameters, the service offering name and the service plan name, which allow you to specify the service instance without a service plan ID. So either you continue using the service plan ID, that's completely up to you. We will not deprecate that. That will stay there forever. But you can now also use the service offering name and the service plan name and get rid of any data source that you have. This is true, of course, for new configurations that you do, so for new service instances that you want to create. Now, of course, if you're using Terraform, you probably have already quite some stuff there when it comes to service instances. And now the question is, how do I move forward with my existing configurations? And that's quite straightforward. So once again, I have prepared a sub account where I have one service instance in there just for the sake of the demo. And I will close this one. And here I have the setup. So I have a sub account. I have a service plan that is fetched by a name. So by this audit log management stuff. And then I create the resource using the data source with the service plan name. And that is something that is available on the platform. So if it refreshes the state, it of course reads the data source, it reads the service, everything's fine. Now let's move to our new provider, which is 122.0, which contains this new feature. Now, in order to move your existing configuration to this new feature, so to get rid of this data source stuff, you first have to do an upgrade. So as usual, Terraform init -upgrade will move you to the newest version, which is 122. Which takes quite some time. Okay, there we go. And now what we can do, and I will remove this pane for a second, we can do a Terraform plan minus refresh only, which will update the state and only the state. And this will now find out that there are two new fields that will be added to your state, which is the service offering name and the service plan name that we fetch afterwards. And with that, we will update the state. So let's do an apply to just fetch those two fields and put it into your state. And once that is done, we can get rid of this data source. Maybe I keep it for the names. So we have the service plan name that I want to enter, and that's default. And I want to have the service offering name, which is audit log management. I remove the service plan ID, and because the language server is not really fast here, we get this curly red thingies. So let's format that. And now let's do a Terraform plan. No more data source, just a service instance. No changes to your infrastructure. So if you are now creating new service instances via Terraform, I personally would move to the service offering service plan name setup. And if you have existing ones, it's quite easy to move over to the new setup by doing this refresh cycle. And then you can change your configuration to this much more intuitive way of getting things done. And with that, we are already at the third demo, which is the Terraform provider for the SAP Cloud Connector. So first things first, some context for you. So why did we implement this Terraform provider for the SAP Cloud Connector? Well, typically, if you have some configurations on SAP BTP, the end-to-end flow does not only comprise BTP and Cloud Foundry, but also the SAP Cloud Connector. And that was reflected by the user demand we got after publishing our first providers for BTP and Cloud Foundry, that it would be great to have this Cloud Connector. Now, we, of course, rely on the availability of the APIs for the SAP Cloud Connector, or for the thing that we want to bring into Terraform. And luckily, the SAP Cloud Connector team did really a great job. And the APIs were super useful and fit very well with Terraform automation. And this now allows you to have a faster onboarding of your sub-accounts and systems in a end-to-end flow. And yeah, with that, I hand over to Sartak for the flow and for the demos that he wants to present.
Thank you, Christian. Hi everyone, my name is Sarthak Goyal and I am part of BTP Engineering and Delivery Services India from SAP Labs India. So for this demo, I'll show you the whole flow. So there is an assumption that you would have a Cloud Connector instance set up right in your system or in your however you want to set it up, and after that you just need to have these resources which you can connect on this cloud connector instance. So first of all you have a sub account and you can set up a sub account. You have a BTP sub account and you can connect it to your cloud connector instance. Once that is connected, you can manage these resources like system mapping or domain mapping and a BAP service channel or a Kubernetes service channels. So all of these would require a particular sub account connected to the cloud connector. And once a system mapping is available, then you can add a system mapping resource which will expose a internal system which is connected to a sub account. And apart from that, there are these three independent resources which will be part of the cloud connector. There's this one system certificate and a CA certificate and a US certificate. So you can configure your cloud connector instance with these certificates, and that can be done by Terraform. Shift to next slide, Christian. First, I'll show you this first flow. I'll share my screen. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yeah. So here, if we go to a Terraform script, there is this sub account which we are going to configure. And once this sub account is configured, we'll put it inside the other resources that will introduce an internal dependency that these resources will only be created when the sub account is firstly connected to the cloud connector instance. So this is the sub account where you just have to mention the region in which the sub account is located, the sub account ID, and the user and password which is required, which has the admin access to this sub account, as the cloud connector will try to establish a connection to this sub account. And once that is done, then it will start creating the other resources like a system mapping. And once that is created, then again it will create a system mapping resource, and then it will try to create a domain mapping, and all of these things will require a sub account, as I have mentioned. And apart from that, you will have these three self-signed certificates. One is a system certificate, one is a CA certificate, and one is a US certificate. In these you can mention your key size, that is a 2048 or a 4096 bits. And after that you can define the whole subject, telling that what is the common name, what is the email of the organization, and you can mention various fields. But right now the common field is the mandatory one from the cloud connector side. So yeah, maybe I'll just jump in here and I have a Terraform plan. So before that, we have to set up our provider, and here we can mention the instance URL. Like I have already did this. So I have already provided my instance URL on which I'm going to run these scripts. I'll provide my Cloud Connector instances username and password. So after configuring all that stuff, I can just hit a Terraform plan. Yeah. Since right now these are kind of variables, so we have stored them in a variables file, and we can define them using this flow1.tfwars file. So if I just come out of this command, and if I say Terraform plan, the war file will be the flow1.tf file. So it has taken all the variable values which I have given, and after that it will show you that these are the resources that will be created, like a certificate and the cloud connector and this sub account. So it will say that yeah, 9 resources will be added, and after that if I hit a Terraform apply with the same var file, so yeah, it has started creating all of these resources. First, it will try to create the certificates since they are independent of the sub account. And meanwhile, parallelly, the sub account is also being connected. Once this is connected, so that the rest of the resources will be added to the Cloud Connector instance. So now these 9 resources are added. Maybe I can just jump into the UI and I can show you how it looks like in the Cloud Connector. So these are the same credentials that I used in the Terraform scripts. Yeah. So this was a sub account that was created using Terraform. And after, if I jump inside this sub account, it will show me that this is the region and sub account ID and everything. And if I go to the further resources like a system mapping, so this is the system mapping which was created, like it's a backend system which was created. And these are the resources which were of this system mapping which are being exposed. And similarly, these domain mappings are also being created. Apart from that, from on-premise to cloud side, I have created one ABAP service channel and one Kubernetes service channel. So these are also created via Terraform. And if I go to the configuration part, I can see that these system certificates and CA certificates are configured via Terraform. And similarly, this UI certificate is also configured via Terraform. So yeah, this was the first part of the demo where I have all these things ready with me, and I can show another demo, another part of the demo. So yeah, as you saw in the previous demo, that these certificates which I created were self-signed certificates. So suppose you want to upload a signed certificate in your enterprise, you can get these certificates signed from any certificate authority or any OpenSSL or any Vault PKI. So in that case, Terraform gives us an opportunity to have actions. In the documentation I can show. So the actual flow is manually, if you go to a Cloud Connector UI, over there you just have to generate a customer certificate sign request. And after that, you have to get it signed. And then you have to come back to Cloud Connector and you have to upload it. So instead of that, in Terraform, what we can do is we can have this action as the SEC generate CSR, and here we can mention the type of the certificate which we are going to upload to the Cloud Connector. It could be a CA certificate, a system, or a UI certificate. Similarly, we can show them that this is the key size. It could be a 2048 or a 4096, and some details about this particular CSR. That CN could be like this, and you can give subject alternative names so that in order to configure these certificates, you can give these alternative names to the Cloud Connector. So I can show this in action as well. Just a second. Yeah, here. So we have this action SEC generate CSR. And if I come over here, similarly, we will set up our provider again. And here I just have to run a Terraform plan and I will invoke this action. It will be action dot SCC generate CSR dot. I have given it the name system certificate. So if I run this, then Terraform will show me that there is one action to invoke. And once I hit a Terraform apply to invoke this action, again I will mention that it is a action dot SCC generate CSR dot system set. If I put this. Yeah. So here it has invoked this action and a new system CSR has been created. So this system CSR, we can get it, organizations can get it signed via their CA team. And for the sake of the demo, I will try to sign this particular CSR using the OpenSSL. So before signing this particular CSR, first we need a CA authority on our end. So I'll just create a CA certificate of my own. That will be a self-sign. So for that, have a I have my own private key, and I will have my own certificate. Again, it is my own CA certificate that is going to sign this CSR. So you can see that I have my own private key and CA certificate. After that, I will try to sign this CSR. Yeah. So in this, we can mention that this is the CSR file, and we are going to use the CS certificate to sign this file. Yes, there's some issue with this. Sure, what's happening here? But this once the CSR file is signed, then you will get a system certificate, and you can combine these system certificate along with the CSR file. Maybe I have a recording with me. I'll show you that. A second. Yeah, here. It's taking a little bit time. This. Yeah. So similarly, I showed that Terraform plan we can run, and after that Terraform action, Terraform apply, and this action will be invoked. So after that, we'll just open the OpenSSL. So first it created my own CA key, and then it created my own CA certificate, and I'll use the CA certificate to sign this particular CSR. So this certificate has been successfully signed. And once after this, I'll just merge these CA certificate and this system certificate to create a signed chain, because that will be used, that will be uploaded to the cloud connector. And after that, we are going to use this resource called SEC system certificate. So in this, the expected input is a signed chain. So the signed chain which we created, we are just going to come here, and we are going to have a Terraform plan. It shows that one to add. And after this, if we hit a Terraform apply, then the certificate is uploaded. And if we go to the system certificate, yeah. So this is the actual signed certificate which customers can use. Yeah. So this was the major part of the demo.
Thanks a lot for that demo. Cool stuff, I think, around the cloud connector and what's possible to automate there. With that, we are through our demos. And before we jump to Q&A and the chat, once again, call to action. So up to now, we did not hear anything from you, but we would really love to hear your story with BTP CLI and Terraform. So if you have something to share in this round, please let us know. It doesn't need to be a success story. That's not the marketing session here. It can be anything you learned. It can be about the rough edges, anything that you would like to share with this community and that you think is valuable for everybody. So if you would have something that you would like to share, just ping me either by email or on LinkedIn, and we will make that happen. With that, let's jump to the Q&A session. And we have up to now 3 questions. First one is about the usage of the Cloud Foundry Terraform provider. So there is basically the question if we are planning to also have the CF cups, so the user provided services command under the belt of Terraform. Now, I don't think so. So no, I know that we do not have planned something like that, but thanks to your extensive explanation, I think it makes sense to take a closer look at that. Now, what would help us? In general, if you have a feature request, open an issue on the GitHub repository, in this case on the GitHub repository for Cloud Foundry, with the scenario that you just wrote in the chat. Not sure if it's already possible, to be honest with you. There is one thing in the chat that might be helpful there. But if you have the questions, ping us in the GitHub repository, and we will hit you up or give you an answer that's already possible via the existing setup that is out there. Nevertheless, having said that, I will take that one, bring it to the repository, and then we will answer and discuss it there, and then everybody can see what's the outcome, if that's possible, if we have to do something in addition, and then we will see where we go. Second question is about the Terraform provider for the SAP Cloud Identity Services. What is the current plan for the cloud identity provider? Compared to the other providers, it gets not that many updates, and some issues were open for quite some time. That's true. So the Terraform provider for SAP Cloud Identity Services is still in beta state. We are still not happy with the stability of the provider when it comes to going GA. I want to be transparent here. The problem is not that we are not capable of implementing the provider framework, but the APIs that the Cloud Identity Services expose give us some hard time when it comes to bring them into this Terraform lifecycle. Now we are working on that, and I think there are currently still some internal issues open towards the team that is owning the Cloud Identity Services, to be precise, the APIs of the Cloud Identity Services, that need to be fixed in order to get, I think, two main pull requests that are still open, to get them in. And this would then also lead to another release of the Terraform provider. Now, due to the fact that we have this back and forth a bit between the internal team that is handling the API and our team who is handling the Terraform provider, this takes a bit of time, and that's why it's feeling quite slow from the outside world. Nevertheless, we see some, I would say, positive notion that the APIs get more stable, and I'm still optimistic that we will be able to publish a GA version this year, probably around Q3 of 2026. So yeah, bear with us. We are trying to get it out, and we know that this is something that is super important to get the end-to-end flow automated, because it's just a super central part of the end-to-end flow, and it's also very important from a security perspective. So we will do our best to move forward there, but we have some constraints on our way. So yeah, apologize for not having a better news there. Then I think that's all from the Q&A part. Then there is one question in the chat. Are we planning to automate restrictions to the URL path when it comes, I guess, to the Terraform provider for Cloud Connector? So to bring in some dynamic, so keeping the URL path with root, basically the root path for the first few days, and then based on the logs that are analyzed, suggestions for restricting this path are proposed. I can say from a Terraform side that that's not the thing that is in the realm of Terraform. So this is nothing where I could think about anything that would fit into the Terraform lifecycle. This is something that needs to be addressed either from the Cloud Connector folks directly or from other teams that are handling that one. I will take the question and see if I can find something out. If there are plans on that, or if there have been discussions around such a feature to have some active monitoring and then some proposals on how to improve the settings, or to basically to harden the settings there. And then there is one more remark that's about the user-provided services. So maybe it's already possible. So I apologize for not being into that depth of the Cloud Foundry world when it comes to this stuff. But as I said before, we will either add an issue or create a discussion in the Cloud Foundry GitHub repository where we will give some more information about user-provided services and how to handle them with Terraform. Okay, that's at least what I see. All from the chat and also all from the Q&A. So again, this is your chance to raise a question. You can also raise your hand and I can unmute you if you want to do it on the vocal side. Or you just paste another question in. I have to find you. Allow microphone. Okay, I allowed the microphone, so you can now unmute yourself. Yeah, here we go.
I think it's faster to ask via voice. So also regards to UPS, because when creating UPS for cloud logging, you need a service key from the instance.
Mm-hmm.
I think currently it's not possible via the BTP provider to create service keys. You need to then do it manually and then use them, right? So I don't know if that's a possible feature.
So are we talking about the Terraform provider for Cloud Foundry? Or
for the
BTP?
general BTP provider?
There is the resource is called sub account service key, I think.
Is it because, okay, perhaps I just didn't find it.
Service binding, of course. It's not service key, it's service binding.
Okay, it's a bit confusing because binding can also mean binding to an app. It's okay, so
yeah, so we concerning the naming, we kind of kept the BTP CLI naming and the Terraform provider naming in sync because we are relying on the same backend, so to say. So you can create the binding here, and you also get all the information that is then in the UI, I think, displayed in this JSON screen.
Yep.
That you can use then to do the authentication towards the API. But that's the Terraform provider for BTP.
Yeah, but it's good to know because it was just confusing. I was checking and.
So I think in the Terraform provider for Cloud Foundry, it's called service key because that's the naming of the Cloud Foundry CLI, and here on the BTP side, it's called service binding. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Naming is hard. Any more questions, remarks? I think there is one more in the Q&A, right? Could you do a demo discovery flow for a brownfield implementation of an existing BTP setup? The steps to bring an existing BTP setup under TF management in a future session, of course. Okay, yeah, thanks. Ad hoc would have been some fun, yeah. Yeah, that's something that we definitely can take a look at. Is there something that you would specifically like to see when it comes to this, basically import of existing BTP setups with respect to special resources that maybe cause you some headache, or just in general how we would move forward there? I can also unmute you if you want. It's allow microphone. So microphone would be allowed.
Hey, I meant the general approach, just the steps to be taken to bring existing large landscape under management. And I'm also interested in how would we be able to, because we can do drift detection for managed resources now. I'm still looking for a way to discover resources that are not under management. So basically, when someone ClickOps something in your BTP landscape without knowledge of it, BTP or Terraform ignores it now, and I would like to. I would like it to raise a flag saying, "Hey, something came up here. It's not managed." That's not a simple flow.
No, did you join the last roundtable session?
I think I saw that one, yeah. But then not all the list resources were there yet. So
yeah, exactly. So we thought about having some additional CLI that makes it easier for you to create to find out what is not managed, because that's indeed the hard part. But up to now, I did get 0 feedback on that, so we did not dive deeper into that. And you rightfully said it, the list resources were not there for all the resources. Nevertheless, yeah, something that we can prepare for the next session. Yeah, sure.
That would be great.
And have a discussion about it, because I'm quite sure. So we are doing the Terraform providers, but of course we are not doing consulting or something like that. Yeah. So
No,
maybe we have some gaps that we are not aware of.
Cool. Look forward to that.
Cool stuff. Okay. Yeah, that's so homework for me. Yeah, I like that. Okie doke. Any more points that you would like to address? Any more homework that you would like to give to me and the team? If this is not the case, then thanks a lot for joining. I hope we had some interesting stuff in for you. I hope we had some cool stuff in for you. And yeah, it seems like also at least partially the content of the next session is set. And we will schedule the next session. I think it will be more than 4 weeks, because there is some SAP user group meeting in June where I have to do some presentations. So maybe it will be either end of June or beginning of July where we have the next roundtable for you. In between, if you have questions, you find us on GitHub. You find, especially me, if you want to contact me on LinkedIn, or just drop me an email. I'm always happy to hear from you. And with that, thanks a lot for attending. Thanks a lot for your questions, and have a great rest of the day. And hopefully see you in the next session. Until then, bye, folks.